Thanks for joining Black Gay Table Talk.
I'm Dorian.
And I'm Kenan. Join us as we take you on a journey of discussion from two Black gay male perspectives. You'll join us on various life, social, and cultural discussions that are just as versatile as you'd like them to be. Get ready for authentic, heartfelt, raunchy, thought-provoking, and relatable shows that will make you happy to have us join you as a part of your podcast family. Again, thanks for joining Black Gay Table Talk.
Let's get to talking.
Thanks for joining Black Gay Table Talk. I'm one of your hosts, Kenan.
And I'm Dorian.
And for today's episode, we're talking about, the title of today's episode is Skin Deep.
Let's get to talking.
Let's get to talking. Okay, friend. What made you want to embark on this conversation?
It's a topic that has been touched many a times. A lot of people have spoken about dark and light. And I wanted to know if before you became attached, in your early dating realm, did you base the guys that you chose to date based on their color?
Oh, that's a good question. No.
Okay.
But I'm non-discriminative. Discriminative. I've dated dark-skinned men. I've dated, medium complexion brown guys, white guys. I've never really been into the whole, he's darker, but I've experienced it though.
Okay.
Now, we can get into that, but let me ask you, have you ever based your liking for a guy off of his complexion?
I have. I'm just being totally transparent. The younger Dorian, teens and 20, was definitely into light skin.
Really?
Just being honest.
Why
a
is
lot
that?
of it comes from me being dark and not being comfortable in my skin at that age. Being teased and taunted by my complexion. Mm-hmm. I just said, before I knew I was gay, I just said I would never want to have a child as dark as I am, so they would not have to go through being taunted by their skin complexion. And after I learned biology, if I get with somebody light, the chances of my child becoming lighter than me is a very great possibility. So for me, that had a lot to do with me wanting to be with a light-skinned person.
Got it. Wow.
Now, let's fast forward it 30 plus years.
Okay.
And I will tell you, it does not bother me. Honestly, I probably will say now, I probably do prefer dark-skinned guys. And that's nothing, but that's just a preference. There's nothing towards a light skin complexion, because I still think Black men are beautiful, whether you're light or dark or paper bag, whatever end of the spectrum that you're on. I still believe that you're gorgeous. I just say now, as a preference, I tend to lean toward the darker complexion versus the lighter complexion. But it does not deter me. If I see somebody and I have a interest in them, they hold a good conversation, they can speak well, I'm not going to say, I just can't talk to him because he's this complexion. I'm not there anymore. But once again, I'm not 17 or 21 years old any longer. So I would like to think that my maturity level has increased over the years.
And then too, I mean, honestly, I get that colorism exists, right? I'll say this. I don't knock people because you like what you like. There are some people who just naturally are attracted to lighter skinned people or dark skin. Now, like I told you before, I've never been that, you know what I'm saying? But I've experienced it. So, and you know my complexion. I'm like maybe a medium brown, maybe.
Okay.
So I once had someone, oh gosh, and this is back in the days of, what was it? A for A? I'm
Adam
just
for Adam. Just
right,
help the
Adam for
people
Adam.
who may not know A for A. I would think most people would know that. But for the ones that
But
don't, A for A.
right. So Adam for Adam came out, and mind you, I was young. This was before I met my husband. I know I had to have been like 17-ish, but I met this guy. Well, no. So, you have your profile picture or whatever. I had my profile picture, and I thought you could see me, but maybe my lighting was good that particular day. I don't know, but he met me at the mall, and I could tell instantly that there was something off, right? And I'm like, damn, do I have something in my nose? Like, in my teeth? What is, because he was trying to hide it, but I could tell that something was putting him off about me.
Okay.
And later on that day, he still stuck it out. He mustered through it, and we parted ways. Later on that day, I reached out. He did not respond. I was like, "Yep, I knew it was something." And I was 100 like, "Look, something obviously didn't stroke you the right way." And he told me, he was like, "Well, you're a lot darker than I thought you were in your pictures. You're a lot darker in person." And I don't go out with people as dark as you. I was floored. Floored. I'm like, really? And he was my complexion, like maybe a hint or a hair lighter, but he was my complexion pretty much. And he was like, I'm good.
Did that damper your self-esteem? Did you feel belittled after that comment?
You know what? I didn't. I didn't. Well, no, I take that back. I did. I did have a little moment where my self-esteem, I won't even say my self-esteem, but my
confidence level.
It wasn't in myself though. It was more so for me a realization that at the time I was like, there are fucked up people out here. Like, oh wow, he's a fucked up person. Because I was still immature, I didn't understand colorism and people's preferences and this, that, and the other. My thoughts were, oh, I'm attractive. That in itself is enough, right? I have a great personality, boom, boom, boom. But I think for me in that moment, I realized that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Correct.
And I didn't think it was about me. It didn't hit my self-esteem per se, but it did make me feel like there are going to be some people who don't like me.
So let me ask this question. Through your schooling, through grammar school, and in your family, have you ever been teased about your complexion?
Hell yeah. Yes.
From home or school? Where did it come from?
Both. So in my family, all of my siblings that are younger than me, they're light skinned. And I have one sibling that's older than me. She's light skinned. So that reference within, I guess, a relative age for me, they were all light skinned. So I would definitely feel like the oddball. And I got some of the jokes sometimes too. But it was not as bad as it could have been because I did grow up around my cousins. And my cousins, we're all pretty much in that same brown spectrum. So I didn't feel too different or too awkward.
Okay. Well, I was teased. I come home from school and still got teased. And it's funny because a lot of it was from my uncle, which as an adult now I'm thinking, how the hell you gonna call me black and you just as black as I am? But I'm still too young to know this.
Right.
One of the reasons I think I don't drink coffee today is I remember one time as a little boy, I'm somewhere between the age of 8 and 12. And I must have woke up one day. It had to be a weekend because I can almost remember this just like it happened 6 hours ago. I was like, Mom, can I have some coffee? And my uncle was in the kitchen. He'd start shaking his head. I'm like, what? You shouldn't drink that coffee. I'm like, why?
Stop it.
You already black. It's going to make you blacker. And I'm like, oh, I don't want no coffee then. No. Keep it away.
Are you kidding me?
And I'm sitting like, well, what can I drink to stop getting blacker then? So that just goes, you go to school, you're still dark because of course I'm dark complexion. I'm not going to say I was the darkest child in the class, But I definitely was towards that end of the spectrum, without a doubt. And you go to school, you get teased, oh, your teeth are so white and you so black. And it's like, okay. So I will be very transparent and say I grew up very self-conscious about my complexion.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably after college that I became a little bit more comfortable within my skin. And during my dating time, I remember dating someone, and I remember the first time I met their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember this when the first time she met me, and a very outspoken woman.
Okay.
She was like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were that dark."
Aww.
And later on throughout the course of the years that I dated her child, it came out. She was like, "Ooh, I'm not ready. I don't know if I'm ready for no dark grandkids." And I'm just thinking, wow, that's a little. And then it started making a little bit more sense to me. Your daughter is probably dating me because she knows it's going to piss you off. It is like, okay. I mean, luckily there were no offsprings out of that relationship, but I realized karma is a B, because this girl, her youngest sister, ended up getting pregnant, and her son is dark. Now, as I saw her interact with her grandchild, I mean, she nothing but love for him. I mean, that was her heart.
Yeah.
But I still ask myself, as an adult, why would you even tell someone your opinion?
But you know what? So let's dive deeper. Why do you think it's a thing with dating? What does it all come down to?
I think it goes all back to slavery.
Interesting.
I really think that it goes all the way back to slavery, when that's the way slave masters decided on what job was for who.
True.
Based on your skin complexion.
True.
And unfortunately, Black people, they carried it on within their own race. Instead of letting it go and saying, hey, we're not going to let our complexions divide us.
Right.
Unfortunately, the mentality has been ingrained through generations and generations, and people are still using that as, oh, he's too light, he's too dark.
Yeah. There was a whole, and I don't know if you may be familiar with it, but I know, so I know you gotta know. The paper bag test.
Absolutely.
You remember that?
Absolutely.
So for our listeners that may not be familiar with it, there was a long-standing, it was infamous, right? As a matter of fact, you can find one of our references is thoughtco.com, but they reference colorism, it being a form of discrimination, and they go into what the paper bag test was. And so to summarize it, basically it was used throughout Black communities in the United States. And light skin became associated with a high social status. And in order for you to keep the social clubs that you're in, those clubs that you really gain that social status with, light-skinned Black people would basically hold up a paper bag to someone's skin. I don't know why they would hold that paper bag up to someone's skin, and if you were darker than the paper bag, you were too dark to participate.
I think back to department stores hiring for the longest. When they started letting Blacks work in the front of the department stores, you still had to pass something very similar to that. I don't believe that someone of my complexion back in the 40s and 50s would have been allowed to be in front of a Marshall Fields, a Macy's, a Bloomingdale's, or Neiman Marcus.
True. I agree.
was not I did not have the salesperson complexion, let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good I may have been in my sales, the fact that I was dark automatically disqualified me from working as a salesperson.
Isn't that crazy?
It's extremely crazy. But what's even more crazy is that it may not be as obvious today, but it still goes on.
Hell yeah, it still goes on. Yes, it still goes on in other racial communities and in the Black community. It still goes on.
Absolutely. But how do we move past this?
Honestly, I don't think that there's a way to move past it without fully understanding it and being aware that it does occur, right? So, those of us that are darker skinned, we know that it occurs. We are aware. We've had the experiences, but then, I've actually had this conversation with my sister. There will be experiences that you will never have because you are light skinned. And it doesn't frown upon, you, or it doesn't say that you're not woke. You just don't know what you don't know sometimes. And being out at the store with the brown girl and the brown girl getting the dirty look, but you wouldn't notice it because it's not directed to you. You get what I'm saying?
Correct. And let me just say this, because I know we're speaking about the dark complexion. Light-skinned people have just as much discrimination against them as the dark-skinned person. I think it's a little different.
It is different, but they definitely do. But when you speak of colorism, that's specifically,
you're typically talking about the dark complexion, who sees it the most.
Right. But let's just say Hispanic people experience it. I've had friends who have talked about the experience of being a dark Mexican. You know what I'm saying? In essence, say the same thing, that they're not treated as good as lighter skin. And then you have it in Asian communities too. So
I think yes, I agree. I think about the few Puerto Ricans that I'm really close with, and the ones that look very African American versus the ones that are on the lighter side with the not as kinky hair.
Yeah.
But let's think about the island of Haiti and Dominican Republic. They share the same island, and how that island is split in half with the Haitians on one side, Dominican Republic on the other side, and how unequal the treatment is for the people who share the same land.
Yeah.
And as you already know, Haitians tend to be a lot darker than your typical Dominican Republic. I can remember a baseball player in Chicago, Sammy Sosa, and him being a Dominican, and he was on the darker. And I can remember him lighting, I'm assuming he was lightening his skin, because the Sammy Sosa that started playing baseball versus the Sammy Sosa there is now, it's almost a 360-degree change in his skin complexion.
Yeah. I've seen and heard about that too. Thoughtcode.com. Now, they take it a step further than explaining what the paper bag test was. They talked about colorism leading to longer prison sentences too. So there was a study in 2011. So it's been a minute ago, but basically researchers from Villanova University in Philadelphia, they analyzed the prison sentences for over 12,000 women who were incarcerated between 1995 and 2009. And in that research, they found that those who were seen as lighter skinned received sentences that were on average 12% shorter than dark skinned women. Okay. Now let's go. So in 2018, a study by Ellis Monk, a Harvard sociology professor, found that when accounting for differences like gender and education levels, Black people have a 30% chance of being jailed at some point in their lives. But if they're dark skinned, that chance jumps to almost 66%.
Wow, that's what, a 30 plus percent difference.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, but it's true. How could we not see this? How is it that we don't see this, right?
Because we avoid it like the plague. We try to stay away from it, but the reality to it is it affects us every single day. We're judged every day. Whether getting on the elevator, of course, a dark-skinned person is always an immediate threat versus a light-skinned person getting on the elevator with a single white female.
That's true. I've been in that situation. Oh my gosh. And there's sometimes I'm thankful, right? But thankful that I'm not taller. And let's just be real. If you're short and brown, you're received a lot better than someone.
I can agree to that statement.
If you're lighter skinned, and honestly, if you're gay, I'm just gonna be real, because that threat level, it's diminished in those people's eyes. So there have been times where I've gotten on the elevator and I'm like, damn, I'm glad I'm not taller, because Miss Thing would probably just pass the fuck out right here, right now. But I've also been around people where they've clutched the purses and moved to the furthest corner of the elevator. I'm like, bitch, I'm glad it's not a door there, because you definitely would have fallen out. Like, I've had that. But it takes a 6'2", 230-pound man that's dark skinned to really give you what that experience is like, because I know I would never be able to say what that's like. You know what I'm saying?
Because he has his own challenges versus our challenges, because we are shorter. And it's automatically perceived that the threat level is lessened because of our height.
Right.
But I think about, we can go to policing. Even in policing, if a police is called to a situation and there is a tall, thick, dark-skinned person, he's automatically the threat of the situation.
Facts.
Versus a lighter complexion person who could be the same identical bill, and he's not going to automatically, he's probably still going to be perceived as some form of threat because he's black. But the threat level to me has been diminished by the complexion.
Yeah, true. You want to hear something interesting, though?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Colorism exists in white cultures, in European cultures. I want to say I first learned about colorism in white people when I was I had to have been in my early 20s. Basically, they would prize fair or fair-skinned people for centuries. And the standard that was created for them was the blonde hair, blue eyes, clear, fair, light skin. But if you had the freckly skin or the, more pigmented white skin, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You wouldn't be able to make it in the social classes that were.
Was that based on their country of origin?
It could have been, but then in my mind, I would think that, you know what, with the melting pot that is, right, for Europe and for the Americas, there are people who are born in those countries, but may take on characteristics from 2-3 generations ago,
Correct.
And that in itself, again, with your complexion, your hair color, your eye color, for European people, light skin was deemed superior and dark skin inferior. And that included their own race. And actually in Asia, I'll tell you this, fair skin is said to be a symbol of wealth. And dark skin is a symbol of poverty.
Well, they keep it that way. Black is considered dirty and negative. White is considered pure.
But it all can take effect on mental health. It can take effect or have an effect on how you deal with people, loving yourself, trusting the world, experiencing the world.
This is true. I had already told myself that if I had children, and I did have dark-skinned children, whether male or female, it was going to be they would hear 365 days a year how beautiful they are. So when you go in the world and you get that one person that want to play the does and say, "Ooh, look how dark you are, look how light you are," and say, "Guess what? It doesn't bother me because I have a family that loves me just the way I am."
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that my family didn't raise me right. They did the best that they could. But I think if I had grown up hearing that versus don't drink the coffee because it's going to make you black, or I think I would have gone into the world a lot more secure about my dark complexion.
My somebody in my family used to say that I looked like a black seal. They said I looked like a black seal. In the summertime, my parents had a pool in the backyard, so we would go out and swim, of course. So in the summer, naturally, you get darker. Yeah. They said that they would say I looked like a seal.
I look at my skin complexion now that I've been I've been in Georgia for over 8 years now. And when I look at my skin, and I can see, based on me wearing t-shirt, how dark my lower arms have gotten compared to when I moved here, where in the northern state, I had a long sleeve shirt on probably 9 months out of the year because we don't get summer as long as we do in Georgia. And now that I wear short sleeves almost all year long, really, except for those rare few cold days, I'm exposed to the sun a lot more. So I can tell how darker I have gotten. But Georgia being a melting pot of blacks at this time, the growth, as you know, of blacks migrating to Georgia, it's just really nice to see the variety of complexions. And I don't think it's as bad as it was growing up in the North. That's just my opinion. There's no known data or facts about that. But just being down here, I can truly say I haven't really experienced that, because I know you have the Caribbeans down here. You have the Africans down here that have relocated from their country. You have so many other down here that it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to walk in the store and see someone who looks just like you. And until they open their mouth, you're like, oh my God, where are they from? That's not a Southern twang or a Midwest twang or New York, East Coast twang. Yeah. It's like, they're not from the States.
I love it. Well, I'll say I think that the conversations should be had more, especially with younger generations and those who are of a different skin complexion. I mean, because awareness is the first step, in my opinion. That you have to acknowledge that it is something that happens, right?
Correct.
Then you get into those discussions. And when you get into those discussions, then you're able to develop understandings. You develop those understandings, you have sensitivities now to a world that you weren't necessarily sure existed before you had the conversation. And through that, I think over time, there could be that change to occur where these situations happen a lot less frequently. Well, please subscribe, download, and of course, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed. Again, if you'd like to subscribe, donate, and of course, any ratings we definitely appreciate. Again, thanks for listening to Black Gay Table Talk.